Hey, welcome to my mini series, The Process Chat, where I bring conversations surrounding getting started in business, exit planning, and everything in between. I'm Adriana, your operational guide to helping you build out processes so you can focus on progress. So today I'm keeping it super light. We're going to be talking about systems, what they are, why you need them, and all that jazz. So before I dive into the visual portion of this, the main thing I want to talk about is, well, not talk about, but the main point I want you to get about systems is that these things, your system is a combination of your processes. So the step-by-step actions you take to achieve a goal, like multiply that by whatever you're doing inside business, like all those actions that you're doing in business, that's contributes to your system. And then also your tools, standard operating procedures, basically anything that you are doing inside your business that contributes to how you're operating, how you're doing the steps in business. That's what your system makes up. That's what it is. So the big question I want you to think of as I talk through this today is, are your processes built to be repeatable? Because at the end of the day, your business is just a big thing of repeated processes that you do in business. So there's that. So I'm going to bring up the visual because I love my visuals, but I will explain it. So if you're just listening in, I'll definitely explain what the visual has. So let me round up my stuff real quick because I should have already had this steady. That's a good thing about this because it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we are looking at the business system. So like I said, business systems are nothing more than a combination of all of the things you do inside your business, like all the process that you do inside your business, right? So clarify that. In particular, these are your repeated processes. I like doing little homes. So I'm using a little house as my example today. So like you'll see like the foundational piece at the bottom. So if you're just, again, listening in, I'll walk it through everything. So you have the foundational pieces, then you have like the actual structure, not the structure, but I guess the actual structure of the house, I guess the midsection, middle. This is like where the subsystems and everything live at. So pretty much the processes within the main system. I'll dive into that in just a moment. And then you have the business vision, which is the big roof. So you have my little house in here. You can kind of see inside of it, all that jazz. Now to walk through that. So we're starting at business system. So we need our foundation. We need our foundation for the business. So we know business is nothing more than a bunch of repeated processes that we may do consistently or we kind of do here and there. No matter what, business is literally just a bunch of processes. So I'm just gonna stick to one example today, but I'll just stick with marketing today because marketing is always something we all need. Marketing is one of the core business systems. So like, you got marketing, you got sales, you got the operations, you got HR, whatever that system is. We're just going to focus on one today, or however you build it out, because there's different ones. Like if you're in manufacturing, depends on what industry you're in. So depends on what industry you're in. We're just going to focus on marketing because we all need marketing, so we'll focus on that. So the foundational is the core business system. Like I mentioned, we're going to focus on marketing today. So within that, so you got your marketing system. One thing I like to say is that even though marketing is the big picture, big core system that we see, it's actually made out of a lot of what I like to call the subsystems. So let's use another example. So we're going to move on up. So we finished like the foundational piece. Like we identified, okay, my business, no matter what, is going to have these little columns, which is like the marketing, sales, all that jazz, holding it up. So we have that. So now we're moving on up, which is a subsystem. So like we're focusing on marketing today. Marketing, again, totally dependent on how you want to actually market. I'm going to use myself as an example because it's a whole lot easier to talk about because I'm doing it. So since the system of focus is marketing today, we're moving on up to the subsystem. So we have the subsystem here can be made of social media, use event planning. There's however you plan to market. So I want to break mine up even more because social media is so broad and I post on different platforms. So we're going to break that up even more by focusing on, okay, I have a system when I post on LinkedIn, I have a system for Facebook, and I also have a system because I do workshops and stuff. So that like events and everything, that's a whole other subsystem. So like I mentioned, systems are literally just all the things that you do inside your business and identifying what stuff is actually repeatable or repeated and building that out and like the tools and resources and stuff that supports it. So focusing on the subsystem portion, You're just coming up with all of the steps you're doing within that core system. So like we mentioned, the core system we're focusing on is marketing. You're moving on up. Now you're focusing on the subsystems, do that with air quotes, the subsystems of that. So you're figuring out what steps you're taking inside each subsystem, and everything that you come up inside of the subsystem is what makes up your core system. So, and it's a lot. We're just throwing system and stuff out there. So let's break it down a little bit more. So, like I mentioned, I'm going to focus on. I'm just going to focus on LinkedIn, honestly, because that's too much, and I'm not trying to keep this live long. So I focus on LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn, and I also do workshops. That's part of my thing. Those are my two different subsystems. But with the mentioning those, so we're going to focus on LinkedIn because there's social media. You can group all of them together if you like, but you still got to break it down by the platforms as well. Like, what are you doing on LinkedIn? What are you doing on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, whatever you're using? So these subsystems tend to be broken down even more. So the main thing you want to get out of that is that you're focused on marketing. What is the subsystem for that? I'm doing social media. We're breaking that even more. Now I'm focusing on LinkedIn because LinkedIn has its own little process that I follow. And I'm going to identify like all of the things I do on LinkedIn actively and kind of reverse engineer how I'm doing. So like key thing, if you follow me for a while or anything, or just checked out my profile, I have a weekly newsletter that goes out every Wednesday. I do these lives every Tuesday. I do posting. I'm a very random poster. I don't really have a structure schedule for that. Don't strike me for that. But I don't have a true structure for that. I just like posting. So I just kind of post whenever the mood sets. But again, it's still some kind of process. I at least try to keep it to a similar time frame so people can actually see, oh, like she usually posts in the morning time or something like that. Okay, so anyway, when you're building out the subsystem, as you build that out, I got to figure out, okay, I'm posting, I'm doing all these things, but I can do that. I have to figure out why I'm doing it. And that's where the roof comes in. So like the actual business vision. So like, I know they say focus on your goals, focus on your why and all that stuff. That is a huge thing when you are building out systems. So again, because I got to backtrack just a little bit. Like we said, we're focusing on the core system, core business system, like at the bottom, the foundational piece. So we were focusing on marketing. Now we moved into the household, which is where the subsystems live at. I'm figuring out like the processes, like all the steps I'm doing within that subsystem of marketing. So like I mentioned, I'm focusing on social media and I do workshops. Those are my subsystems. And for social media, I have to break that down even more because I don't just post on one platform. I post on multiple platforms. So I have to figure out what does my processes look for that. And like I mentioned, I broke mine up by LinkedIn and Facebook. For LinkedIn, I do a weekly newsletter. I do these lives. So I have different steps I take for that. But in order for me to like really know what I'm working towards, I need to have like an actual goal or the business vision. So the last thing of this is, what are you doing this all for? So for me, this helps me with brand awareness. It helps me market or get more visible, getting people to my email list where I actually like to communicate more. There's different things I do it for. So this is why it's super important to have these systems built out, because we can easily say like, yes, all our businesses need these. We need to market, we need to stay visible, we need to bring in money, we need to do this, that, and the third. But you want to make sure the processes that you're coming up with, like the systems that you're building out, actually follow along with whatever vision you have. So like even with me doing like the weekly newsletter on LinkedIn, for that, my long-term vision, of course, is like visibility and stuff, but like my long-term vision is that I want people to get stuff out of my content. I want them to take action. I want them to take action. It can be like using the tips and applying it to their own business or roles, or it could be working with me. Those are like different visions I have for the things. So that's why I do those things, but I can't identify how I do those things if I don't have like a clear step-by-step action I'm taking to actively do those things. So that's where that vision and stuff comes in, like why you're doing it. And if it's like a short term, I put like launch plan. So like if you're not watching the thing, I have for the business vision at the very top, the roof, you have the think launch plan, hiring, if you're at the hire, if you're trying to scale, if you're trying to exit. Why didn't I put X on there, but it is part of that. But what goal are you trying to do? Even if it's short term, like what is your goal for that? So like whenever you're building out particular systems, it's very hard to focus on trying to build everything out at once. Like we didn't like stuff doesn't happen in one day. So like it's not expected or it shouldn't be expected for you to build out your entire business system in days and honestly not even months. Like sometimes this stuff takes like years because it took you years to develop everything. And if you're not documenting now, it's going to take a while to get that stuff up. But the easiest way, so like if you are here today trying to figure out like, okay, I need to get started with my systems, like I want to figure out how that works, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to recap this real quick. So the main thing you want to focus on, of course, whenever you're building out your systems and you're starting maybe from scratch, or maybe let me not even say start from scratch. Maybe you're trying to be more organized or something, whatever your goal is. The main thing you're gonna focus on, like, okay, no, actually, I'm take that back. We're gonna start with the to-do list. That's my big thing. Like, we're gonna start the to-do list. So pretend I didn't say that. So the main thing I want you to focus on today is look at your to-do list. Figure out which of those tasks fall under the core business system. So it makes it a whole lot easier. What tasks are you doing today and what course business system is it falling under? So like we'll just use marketing for example, because I'm here today on live on LinkedIn. And of course I'll be repurposing that. So if you're watching a replay or something, yeah, it's same concept. So this is considered marketing. Y'all are seeing me, y'all are listening to me. I'm getting visible. I'm accomplishing what I want. Okay, so we have the core business system and apply it to your to-do list. So once you do that, you figure out, okay, I'm doing this for marketing. Now I'm breaking it down. What subsystem does this fall under? Like, is this like a social media thing? Is this like a little promo for something coming up? Like, why am I like, what is this for? Like, what subsystem does this fall under? Like, what part of marketing does this fall under? Am I talking out loud at a networking event or whatever? Whatever you're doing, figure out what subsystem that falls under. So, like we said, we're focusing on marketing today. You're figuring out why you're doing this particular task that may fall under a form of marketing, but it's really a part of like your networking or like your social media processes. Whatever it is, you're figuring out what that subsystem is. So that's the next thing. And then the last thing is figuring out why are you doing this task? The easiest thing. So, and this actually helps too with your to-do list because a lot of times we have a lot of stuff on our to-do list that we don't really need to do right away. So like this helps you identify like, is this really worth my time to do? So if you follow those three things, like when it comes to building out your system, of course, your to-do list is written down maybe, but this is also a good habit into writing down why you're doing things and how it's done. So like as time comes in, because like again, business is just a big repeatable process over and over. You're doing certain things over and over again. So it helps with documenting those things. So like if you do decide to hire or sell or whatever down the line, you already kind of have like a basis running for you. So it's got to throw that little tidbit in there because you know I'm about documentation. But overall, you're figuring out, okay, what is this item doing? Because we're recap. What is this item for? Like, what system does this item fall under? What subsystem does this item fall under? So, like, we know marketing. What part of marketing does this item fall under? I'm focused on marketing, but of course, this is going to look different depending on what your to-do list looks like. And then you're figuring out why am I even doing this task? So you're going to do that with every task on your to-do list and figure out things that way. So there's that. Hopefully that helped with kind of clarifying system. I've been throwing system out, subsystem, all that good stuff. But overall, the main thing you should just get is that systems are nothing more than your repeated processes. And that looks different depending on how often you do it and all that good stuff. So that's all there is for that. And if you like this conversation, I would love, love, love if you let me know, send me a message, send me email, comments, anything. I would love to know if this has been helpful in any way. Also, too, if you want to stay in touch, definitely join my email community. I have the link that's scrolling below, and you also get like a free lean systems guide that helps you break down how to create processes based on things that you are actively doing. So that's at news.thelazymillennial.net for those that can't see, news.thelazymillennial.net. And then I also have a Facebook group, just launched it. So there's like nothing happening in there, but eventually there will be. And you can join that if you're active on Facebook at any point. Business the Lazy Way on Facebook. Business the Lazy Way. Pretty easy. And that's all I got for you guys. So next week we are going to be, I'm going to be talking about how to build like systems revolving around change or crisis and things like that. So if that's of interest, I will talk to you next week. So yeah, that's all I got. Until then.